everyone. Welcome to Living Consciously. I'm Carol Carnes. Well, today we're talking about self-realization. Now, that's a term you hear all the time in the spiritual world. And of course, it means to realize the self, who we really are, not who we think we are based on personality tests or Myers-Briggs or what we were taught in school or any of the responses we've gotten from the world that we think define us. This is about realizing the self that is one with that which created us out of itself. I came across an old Alan Watts poem. Alan Watts was this great Buddhist scholar and he was a philosopher, and he was extremely wise. And in reference to the source of life, he said, "It is that which cannot be spoken by which we speak, that which cannot be thought by which we think, that which cannot be heard by which we hear, that which cannot be, the breath cannot be held by which we breathe." That which cannot be held by which we breathe. So it's really kind of a mystery, but an experience that can be felt. So the word realization is what I want to play with first. And it doesn't mean just to become aware of something, oh, I realize, whatever. It means to make real. To realize something is to make it real. So self-realization is to make real the self that we are and have always been, but may not have known until we realized it. We became aware of it through spiritual practice, through meditation, through study, through contemplation. So what would a realized self be doing in the world? See, that's a good question. People might say off the top of their head, well, they'd be more loving and kind and more compassionate. Yes, of course. But not as an experience in behavior modification, like today I'm going to be kinder. We're talking about something systemic, something that's really coming from within. So the first word that comes to my mind is surrender. And in this case, it certainly doesn't mean being passive and just giving up, resignation. It means surrendering to that realized self and allowing the mind, the local self, to perceive what it would do in the situation, for example. How would it respond to this outer stimuli that's coming in? There's a way for the psychology to respond, and it might be through fear or anger, but the realized self might respond by seeing through the appearance to the motivation behind the action, which is where compassion arises, when we can see through to the motivation behind. This is a real balancing act. It's not easy to be human when you know you're a spiritual being first. It helps, but it's a constant practice. I think it was the last time I said the little motto is practice the presence and trust the process. So we practice the presence of that source within us, the universal aspect of our nature, we could say, the greater self, the higher self, the truer self. Practice its presence and then trust what it knows. And you might say, you could put it this way, what does my heart know? What does my soul know? What does my true being know? As a spiritual being in this experience, what do I know? What do I feel? How do I want to express myself in this moment? It's a real balancing act, and nobody said it's easy, but it's so much easier than just reacting to everything from our psychology, from our made-up self. What we present to the world usually is a false self. Now, when I say that, I don't mean we're lying. I don't mean we're a prevaricator. I just mean we think we know who we are based on what's happened to us. I talk to so many people who really feel completely defined by their childhood. And these are people that could be in their 50s or 60s. By the time you're 30, you should let your parents off the hook and take charge of your own life. But that is a process too, of realizing I am someone despite what happened to me. That's one of the greatest things I think I've ever actually come to become aware of, which is that I am not defined by my past. Well, sure, it had an effect on me, and it made me think I was something that I wasn't. And when I let go of what I think I am and tune back into who I know myself to be, then how I am in the world is very, very different. You know, in the East, they call this walking the razor's edge. I think of it as kind of like a tightrope, a tightrope walker. You know, it's balance. The whole thing is about being conscious. Those people have to be really conscious of what they're doing and where they're putting their foot and where they are and maintaining that balance. Well, it's kind of like that when you're living in the world of things and people and events and conditions and circumstances and situations and the news. We'll talk about that some more today too. To maintain that center of presence, trusting the process, being here now. This is a real practice, and it's worth doing. To be aware of, to be self-realized is to be aware of our spiritual beingness and bringing it into our human doingness. So that's really what this is all about. That's the practice of modern New Thought. And that's an effect that comes from meditation, study, contemplation, affirmation, and that helps us to realize or make real this greater self that we are. And when I say greater, I don't mean it's other or somewhere else. I mean it's a part of us that we may not have fully become aware of. We may have been talked out of, and sometimes early old-time religion talked us out of it. I mean, how many of you, be honest, were raised in a religion that said you were a sinner or that you were born in original sin? I mean, that's just ludicrous. Life isn't like that. Nature isn't like that. There's nothing sinful about the universe. It's all life blooming, coming forward, giving of its gifts, blossoming in beauty and order and color and harmony. I mean, we have music, and music is really one of the things that proves to me that there is something greater in the invisible realm, because you can't see it, but you can make it real. Music is what is heard, realized. It's a very great analogy to how we use our attention, that we pay attention to what we feel and know from the inside, not what we see out there, not based on what's on the news, but what we know from our deeper self, and act on it. Make it real. So surrender, in this sense, is kind of a complete confidence that there is this self, and that he knows what she is doing all the time. And if we just relax into it, it will lead us, guide us, direct us, but maybe more importantly, draw to us that which belongs with it. So let me ask you this question. Do you want to draw to you, attract in this life that which belongs with your pure, whole, beautiful self? Or do you want to attract and draw to you that which belongs to your made-up self, your psychology, the sense of being done unto or victimized or attacked? No, you don't want that stuff to keep happening, do you? The way to break the momentum of a certain style of living is to see ourselves differently. There's no other way to do it. You can pretend, you can say, okay, I'm going to change this and change that, and I'm not going to do that anymore, and that'll work for a while. But if it isn't systemic, if it isn't coming from a deeper realization of who you are, it won't last. You'll go right back to what makes you comfortable. Every psychologist knows that. It's absolutely true. But when we give ourselves the opportunity to sit in silence and sit with ourselves and let it dawn on us who we really are, I'll tell you another way, and I'll finish that sentence, then it becomes more real to us and we can act on it. But one of the ways to connect more deeply with this real self is remember moments in your life when you felt, for example, real love. Just maybe it was the birth of your child or your significant other or nature or a pet, but you felt real unconditional love. That's the real self. The ego-local mind puts conditions on love. Well, if you behave yourself, or if you do this, or if you love me back, or if you're pleasing, if I like your behaviors. No, that's not love. That's conditional. But you remember those moments when you felt that absolutely unconditional love. That is your real self. Now think of it the same way with perhaps joy. Just glad to be alive. Love this life. Love being me. Kind of like a 3-year-old might out in the backyard playing with a butterfly, or standing in the rain, or throwing flowers over the head. I saw something once in Hawaii. I was 19 and I was doing hair at the Elizabeth Arden Salon in Waikiki. Woohoo! That was a big deal. And I lived down in Wailakahala, so I took the bus home. And it was the end of a long day. I think it was a Friday or Saturday. We were just jam-packed, busy all day long, one appointment after the other, And I'm sitting near the window, and we're driving up Kalakaua, going up near Diamond Head. And I looked out, and I saw this little boy. He must have been 5 or 6. And he was running along the street, and he was, there was a curb and then a gutter. And the gutter was filled with flowers, plumeria and fallen orchids, that's Hawaii. And that little boy scooped up these flowers and threw them over his head and let them fall on him. And it just made my whole day go away. It was like, oh, that's it. That's what being glad to be alive is like. That's joy. Well, when we feel that, and you can all remember times when you have, that's your real self. It's not the same thing as momentary elation. Oh, wow, I got the big job. That's great. But joy is something else. It's much deeper. It's much more lasting. In fact, it's kind of always there, whether we know it or not. So a realized self brings these traits out into this life that we're living. It's not an idea, it's a reality. So the reality is that all human beings right now are waking up to this truth. And you see it all over the place with the dissolution of old-time religions. I've talked about this before, that statistically people are not attending church the way they used to. Even in Europe, in the great cathedrals, they're not full of people on Sunday, maybe during the holidays or the festivals, but for the most part, in all those wonderful Italian towns, people don't go to church. And the same is true in England. I think only 10% of people attend church in England. And Canada, nobody goes to church in Canada except New Thought places like this, or Unitarian, something progressive. Canadians tend to be good thinkers, and they want something that makes sense to them. So the point being is things are evolving, and there's no way to look at the news and stay centered in your self-realized self without seeing it as an evolutionary moment in humanity. It's an evolutionary moment. We are exiting. There was the Iron Age and the Renaissance and the Stone Age and the Dark Ages. I think we've been in the ignorance age, and we're coming out of it. Now, that at the same time, it's always a paradox. There's always two things happening. We've had wonderful discoveries, wonderful inventions. We went to outer space, and we've conquered a lot of diseases. We've created a lot of new ones too. But we have made a lot of progress. But not where our realized self is concerned. We haven't made much progress on the spiritual level because we've been burdened and oppressed by religion that belongs to an old age and not this one. We've been living in the allegories and the metaphors without realizing they're allegories and metaphors. I say we, not all of us, but that's what was given to us. That's what was presented to us. And going back to my original topic, we were taught this is how you define yourself. Not true. So we're going to take a break in a moment. And when we come back, I'm going to talk a little bit more about where humanity is, which would mean us, you and me, and where we are in this moment of our evolution, because we are evolutionary beings. There's no getting around that. There's an evolutionary gene in us, and we're meant to grow and prosper and become more self-realized. All right, so we're going to take a little break. We've got some wonderful sponsors, and we're grateful to them, and we thank them in advance for supporting this station and this program. So take a listen and come back, and we'll talk more about where you and I are in this evolutionary process. Don't go away.
Is your treasured dining room table in danger? Don't let scratches, spills, or hot plates ruin your beautiful dining table. Table pads are normally hundreds of dollars, but right now you get a custom table pad for only $69, an unheard of price. Our table pads are hand upholstered, just like the ones Grandma had.
Call now to order your custom table pads for only $69 and receive a $30 protective storage bag free. Call 800-631-9229.
This is a national healthcare alert from the Health Hotline. If you, a family member, or a loved one suffers from knee pain and have Medicare as your primary insurance, we've got great news. You could qualify for a pain-relieving knee brace at little or no cost to you. Get free delivery, and all the paperwork is handled by our accredited suppliers at no charge to you. We also have other pain-relieving braces available for shoulder, ankle, and your back. Call the number on your screen right now to immediately receive a pain-relieving brace at little or no cost.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call Low Cost Airlines. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call now.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business. According to the secret war, banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get the secret war free. Call the number on your screen or visit online.
Hi, everybody. We're back. Before the break, we talked about where we are in our human evolution, and we are evolving, believe me, and we never have not been. It used to take eons, and now it happens very quickly. It's in an accelerated phase. In fact, my friend Barbara Marx Hubbard, who's a futurist, said, and Ernest Holmes, the founder of New Thought, also said a similar thing, that once we become aware of the fact of evolution, we can observe it, then we become in charge of it. So that means that now we choose to evolve consciously. Okay, hopefully we're really conscious and we're going to bring our self-realized self into this evolutionary moment. Here's my theory. I think humanity is coming out of its adolescence. Now, when you think about the greed, the corruption, the me, the demands, for more and more and more, the fighting over things rather than working it out, all this stuff is very adolescent. And we're coming out of that phase now. But remember when you were, let's say you were 14, still a young teenager, but moving. You longed to be an adult. You could feel the freedom involved, but it was also frightening to be that independent and on your own. Although you wanted to do it, you were still longing for what was. The childhood where you were taken care of, where mommy and daddy were gods, that turned out to be a fantasy. But we felt, they'll take care of us forever and they'll give us whatever we need when we need it. Didn't happen that way, did it? No. So we're in that stage now where we're attempting to unveil our sight. We're attempting to move forward. We're attempting to dismantle all those old false ideas about who we are and what's possible for us, which were rooted in religion, and realize the fabulous, magnificent potential inherent in humanity itself. Now, when that happens, there's always a backlash. I mean, when any evolutionary moment is real, where there's always the old that tries to reassert itself, and it's just nature making sure that our reality isn't shattered, that this is actually a growth movement, that we've actually grown to this point. And that's where divide and conquer comes in. You know, if you can convince people that childhood's better than adulthood, or that adolescence is better than adulthood, you can divide and conquer them, right? To pit them against the adults. Or that's kind of what's happening. So we begun the process of unveiling it. You know, we did it through our insistence on civil rights, equality, our respect for diversity, and those were mighty struggles that we dealt with. They were hard times, but we did it. And we in the West have begun to open our eyes to the rest of the world. We're wanting now to engage with the rest of the world, human to human. We want to clothe, feed, help, educate. We're realizing that people need the basics. They need clean water, they need shelter, they need food, they need opportunity. And thousands of our younger population are doing things in that vein. They're going to those countries, or they're sending things to those countries. It's just wonderful what's going on. There is a lot of awakened young people. There are a lot of awakened young people who are coming to the aid of those in need. And then divide and conquer, there are those who say we shouldn't care about them. We've got our own problems. Let them figure it out. So this is what's going on, is we're attempting to evolve, and we're in the throes of an awakening that really is going to change everything. Are we ready? Well, we will be if we have realized our own self, if we're making ourself real, if we're making our higher nature real, if we're bringing it to bear in our world. And as humanity enters adulthood, we're beginning to see that wisdom is what's important, not theology, but wisdom. And that comes from within people. And you can see a self-realized person. I mean, you know who they are immediately. The Dalai Lama, Muktananda was one. Paramahansa Yogananda, who came here in the early part of the 20th century, fully realized human being. I could do a whole show on him. He was an amazing human being. But in their presence, you see that that person is real, and they're not bringing an agenda with them. People ask me what it's like to be in the presence of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and I always say it's like walking into an empty room, because he doesn't bring anything. He's present. He's right with you. He listens so intently to you. It's just a wonderful experience. He realizes he is a presence in the moment. He's not a past. And he had a past, like we all do. He's not a past. He's here and now. Okay. So this is what we're moving into as humanity. We're wanting to love each other. We're wanting to celebrate life. We're wanting to take care of the planet, not decimate it. We're beginning to see the error of our ways. And that's the first step, isn't it? You know, when you look at your own life and you think, oh man, what I've been doing to myself, why am I doing this to myself? That's a huge moment, because the other realization that people have, or not a realization, but a thought is, why are they doing this to me? No, that's not it. It's, why have I done this to myself? Why am I still accepting this abuse, or this low-paying job, or this world the way it is? Why am I not out there trying to make it better? So that's the first step, is to realize we have been living a life that does not tap into our real potential. Great moment to have that realization, because we must then begin to consider, what is my real potential? And as we said in the first part of this show, if you've ever felt real love or real joy, there's your potential. If you've ever been deeply peaceful. I remember one time, it was when I was living in Florida. I was driving down the street, and I had this moment of being incredibly peaceful and happy. And it was just a deep, deep, deep experience. And I heard a voice in my head, of course, that said, "That's what it's like to be you, Carol." Whoa. You know, and those kind of moments, maybe they don't last long, but the remembrance of them do, and the experience of it does. And we realize that's authentically who I am. Peaceful and happy, glad to be alive, joyfully present in the moment. You know, and that doesn't mean I don't make the right phone calls and attend the meetings and pay the bills and do what I have to do. It means while I'm doing those things, I'm taking an awareness of me into them so that I expect good results. You know, I expect affirmation. I expect to attract, as it were, into my experience that which belongs with this fully realized self. Now, I'm not saying I'm fully realized, but I'm getting there, and I know you are too if you're interested in this sort of thing. One of the things that really helps people is to be in some kind of community setting. Now, I'm not talking about, you know, where you live together. I mean, that you have a circle of friends and like-minded people who can support you and who feed back to you the truth you need to know in the moment. Such a group is the Mesilla Valley Center for Spiritual Living. We're there to serve the world. We're there to discover who we are, and we're there to bring about a change in our world which extends into the larger reality that we all share. So join us on Sunday morning at 10:30 at the Community Center in Mesilla on Calle de Santiago. There's the address on the screen. I give a talk, we do some meditation, and then we dialogue about what we've talked about. And people ask questions or make comments or share their point of view. It's a really great way to spend a Sunday morning and to start or end your week. I hope you'll join us some Sunday at 10:30. Watch for my articles in the bulletin. I write on the third Friday of every month. You'll see an article by me called Living Consciously. Get on my website, www.carolcarnes.com, or our website, there it is, mvcsl.org. Make a donation to us. We really rely on donations. We are a nonprofit 501(c)(3). So we appreciate your financial support. You know, share your prosperity and it returns back to you pressed down and multiplied and overflowing. Okay, you can also buy my book on lulu.com, Lulu.com, or on Amazon. It's called The Way In. I think that about covers it. Thank you so much for being with us today, and have a wonderful week until we meet again. Stay tuned in.